Alright, well, hello, welcome back. It's been a couple of weeks. I have a few things that I can say about those, but we'll get to those at the end. We'll jump right into who I am and what I've made. My name is Shannon. I am a knitter, crocheter, spinner who lives in the Boise, Idaho area. My voice is not normally quite so scratchy sounding. There was a absolutely nasty cold going around my work. Multiple people tested. Nobody was checking positive for COVID. But my voice is still not quite recovered. So for this particular episode, I have 2 finished objects, 1, 2, 3, 4 works in progress, and a few acquisitions. So I'm going to dive right in and move some stuff out of my way. So the first work in progress, well, finished object I have is a pair of socks. I'm going to see if I can get some focus. I know it was kind of loud when I edited last time. Alright, so it may be loud to focus and then still not get good focus. One day I'll get this. So these, alright, I have the tag here. I'm filming at night, which I don't normally do, and I seem to have been less organized than I thought I was. So this sock yarn comes from Knitted Niceties. It is in the color Grandma's Afghan. This is the second pair of socks I have made using this semi-shade of yarn. The last pair of socks I made were also short socks that were crocheted, and they are for my 2 older children. I definitely found it a little bit interesting the way that the yarn is dyed. You have these black areas and then it would have these rainbow streaks. So it would go red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, then purple, blue, green, yellow, orange, red. And in the crocheted socks, it was kind of like 2 different rainbows spiraling around. In these, I think you can see it a little better if I take it off the blocker. It would just kind of cross over each other. So I would end up with the yellow kind of pooled in the middle in between with the blues and the greens on the outside. So it was like warm in the middle, cool on the outside. Almost like some sort of a infrared camera, which it was definitely different than the crocheted socks. I think I kind of like the way they spiraled better crocheted than knitted, but both were very cool effects. The pattern itself is just a vanilla pair of shorties. I cast on 64 stitches using double pointed needles. I tend to use a 3mm, which I know is larger than a lot of people use for fingering weight socks. It's just what works for me. I did a 2x2 rib for 12 rows. I did a couple of rows before doing a German short row heel, and then just right into a rounded toe. So that is just a vanilla pair of socks. Sometimes it feels like there's not a lot to say about socks. I almost always have a pair going, but weirdly I don't have a works in progress socks to share with you today. Don't worry, I will next time. The other finished object I have, you haven't seen before. It was started and finished within the last 2 weeks. So this pattern is from Mama in a Stitch. I believe it's the Sundance Granny Ripple. Mine is in different colors than hers is. And I will put a link to her pattern down below. So it is worked using Lion Brand's Mandala. And hers was worked in different colors than mine. I happened to see the pattern being worked up on the Wool Needles Hands podcast and realized I had 3 full balls and like 3 partial balls just sitting in stash that I had no idea what to do with. And I thought that the colors might go very well together. I think I was right. So I had, like, this purple down here was just a little partial ball left over from a sweater. And then I had a full ball up until these couple of stripes of blue, which was another partial ball. Then a full ball of purple. Then a partial ball here. And a full ball of this blue. So it is supposed to be a wrap. But I felt like, for me personally, when wrapped around, I would have liked a couple, like maybe another foot or 2 so it could really, really wrap. Ooh, it's everywhere. It's super cozy and was very fun to make, but it actually ended up being just like the perfect size to just lay over my lap. So I'm thinking it's probably going to live on this chair where I work sometimes. So again, this is the Sundance Ripple Wrap from Mama in a Stitch. I definitely know it's Mama in a Stitch. Using Lion Brand Mandala yarn. Let me see. I know. So the purple color was Chi. The all blue color was Harmony. But I didn't have a label for the blue and turquoise. So I know I had to look that color up to write it down. Overall, this size that was a lap blanket used 646 grams of the Lion Brand Mandala Mantra. So this section right here is Mantra. This is Chi. And then up here in the darker blues is Harmony. And again, to make a lap size blanket, it was 646 grams. I did use about the same amount she said in her tutorial. In her blog post, it said to use 3 balls, 4 if you wanted a little bigger. And I had 3 full balls, and the partial balls that I had were probably close to a 4th. So I think if I was just buying yarn to make this, for my personal taste, if I wanted it to wrap around me like that, I might even go 5 balls. But as this was all just sitting in stash, scraps and leftover yarn, I now have a blanket, so it's perfect. That was the exact amount I wanted. Oh, I do have one other work in progress. So I'm going to insert a little clip. I was going to do this last time, and then I just got spacey and forgot to film it properly, and then didn't remember I didn't put it in. I have also been working on my corner to corner Bernay blanket yarn blanket. So it started out as a scrappy project using leftovers from various things, and then I realized, wow, this is bigger than I thought, and decided to make it bigger than originally intended. And so in the clip that I'm going to put in, I don't know if I'm putting it in before or after I talk about it, I am laying it out on my queen size bed. What I am planning on doing with this blanket when it is done is using it as a guest blanket when we have people stay. So it will actually be laid out on either a double or a twin size bed, depending on who's staying, where they're staying, any of those factors. I tend to like the house cooler at night. Other people come to visit and they like to add extra blankets just because the temperature's different. So this is going to be a nice, big, thick, weighted blanket for people if they want it when they visit. So last time we talked, I had decided I was just going to go ahead and I'd used up all of my leftover and scrap yarn in it, but I was still really attached to the size. So I went out and I bought 2 more balls of yarn. Obviously you will not see them in acquisitions because they're going to kind of be sitting there in the blanket already. And I put both of those in, and you will see in the little clip there's just a tiny corner left that I did not quite have enough yarn for. So I thought about running out to the store, but decided I wasn't going to have time and that it would be faster if I just went ahead and ordered the yarn. Because I really wanted to get this blanket finished. It's sitting in a basket that is about half dead, and once I finish this, I can count all of those yarn as out of stash. So it's like, okay, let me just order it, it'll be delivered, and then I can finish it, and I can go back to work and school and everything else going on. And then I ordered it, and the yarn is still not here. It is scheduled for delivery on Tuesday. I am filming on Saturday night, so it will be here soon. I will be able to finish it very quickly. It will, of course, create more leftover yarn, but I did make sure to pick the Bernay blanket in a way that I should be able to easily use the leftovers. So here's the little video of me laying it out on the bed so you can kind of see how far it is. It's just way too big for me to hold up here. The first one I'm going to show you, this is kind of a take 2, and it's a semi-finished object. It's almost bound off. It's still connected to the little ball. So this is my take 2 on Nitty Natty's 50-gram yarn cozy. The yarn I am using is leftover from a pair of socks I made. It is using Muse 2320's, I want to say it's an 80/20 marine superwash merino nylon in the color Bubblegum Ice Cream. And I just made her plain and simple with a 3x1 rib to fit a 50-gram ball, and I just finished the bind off. I haven't even cut it off from the yarn. So a few weeks ago I had made 2 of these using the recommended needle size. I think it's a 2.25 millimeter. I don't remember for certain, but my cozy was too small. The top wouldn't stretch properly. The whole cozy just was not great. And coincidentally enough, in her podcast the week that I was discovering that, some people had asked questions about the yarn cozies, and she even answered about the stretchy I-cord bind off and why that may or may not be working for some people. And so I had the 2, I frogged them both, and I was just looking for a very simple project to cast on during the week, something small. And I really do like the idea of having my traveling sock projects in yarn cozies to try to keep them a little more organized. So because when I redid it, I chose a larger size needle. I'm using a 2.75. Again, I think her recommended is 2.25. But I know it is lower than 2.75. So I went up and the whole thing was bigger, but because I was using bigger needles, even though I was using the same yarn from what I had just frogged, it wasn't going to be enough because I was going to use a little more yarn for every stitch. So this time I'm not cutting it off so that if I have to frog it again, I don't have yet another cut off piece. It can all just be wound back on. And I haven't had a chance to try it onto anything because my plan was to try it on before I cut it off of the ball and weave in the ends. So let me see if I have a ball in my scraps over here. Alright, so this is probably a little bit less than 50 grams. It is left over from a pair of socks I made, the first pair of knitted Niceties socks I made for the crochet socks. I want to say her socks took 60 grams total, so this is probably a 40 gram ball. So I'm testing it on something a little bit small. I also did adjust her pattern a little bit to make it taller than recommended. That was something she mentioned in her podcast. Alright, so it looks like the 40 gram fits, and it's a little squishy, so I think I'll be able to get a 50 gram ball in, particularly if it's caked tightly. That is the one thing I do worry a little bit about. I think it'll take me a little while to get used to. Is this is supposed to hold the yarn snug, so getting it in there without having the cake already messed up. But yeah, so take two. I only have one done, but it looks like I'll be able to cut it off the yarn and weave in the ends, so this is a mostly finished object. My next work in progress is just the next thing at the top. I was actually working on this one earlier today. I know last time I wasn't really able to get any good stitch definition, so I've got my little marker. Oh my gosh, I just saw it hanging there. Oh, it's right there by my hand. So that marker is where I was 2 weeks ago. This is the year-long mystery knit-along from Expression Fiber Arts. It is the Advertence shawl. I am knitting it using So Happy Jane yarn from my hand-dyed Happy Yarn Club. And I am not quite caught up. So that very blue strip down at the bottom was January. Then the chunk with the blue and the darker blue was February. And these chevrons is March. So the chevron repeat, each repeat was 14 rows. And to do like a full up and down, I guess it's each triangle is 14 rows. To do a full up and down of the chevron is 28. And you do the 28 stitch repeat 2.5 times. So this has a free pattern. So I don't feel too bad giving like the repeat numbers. But I am halfway through the half. I want to say I'm 8 stitches into the last repeat where it's 2.5, so the last repeat is actually only 14 stitches, not 28. And then I will be ready to get started on the April section. I have the yarn all ready to go. I will be using pink, so the next section will be pink and green. I'm kind of letting whatever comes in my Yarn of the Month club determine what goes next. Each month I get 2 colors, and I just pick whichever one of those colors I think is going to go best. And so this is going to be something that's a little bit kooky because the colors in the Advertence shawl that they're doing, they give you a recommended color, and I want to say they're doing like a blue and a white and then a blue and a white, so that they're like not exactly the same shade of blue or the same shade of white, but it's shades of blue and shades of like white and cream, so very dark blue and very light. Mine's just going to be a hodgepodge of colors, and so far I'm really liking it. I may slightly regret at the end not having a cohesive color scheme when I started, but I'm trying to trust in the process and take this as a more of a meditative project where I just kind of work on it and I go with the flow, and I try not to have too much control over where that project is going. Alright, so I have 2 more. Sorry, I'm trying to keep my voice from going out. So my next project, we'll go with another one you've seen before. This is the Elizabeth sweater. It is a pattern from Hobbii, a Hobbii Plus pattern. And it is a top-down raglan sweater. It is a paid-for pattern, so I'm not going to give too many like numbers or details or anything. But it's a top-down raglan sweater. So if you've done those before, the basic process is... I haven't seen anything that different in the basic process. So last time I showed it, I was all the way down here at the bottom, and I was in the middle of binding off the bottom ribbing. And now, 2 weeks later, I have a single sleeve. So I cast off that second sleeve earlier today, and I did not start on the next one yet, mostly because I didn't want the needles hanging from it when I filmed tonight. I kind of put this away over the last couple of weeks, mostly because when people were in town, like a sleeve is not that hard, but it still decreases, like the sleeve does decrease to the cuff. So it was how many rows am I doing and then how many decreases and making sure I do the correct decreases and the correct row. So I really did focus on this over the last couple of weeks because I had people visiting. So I didn't have to pay too much attention to that pattern. It was the same row after row, and you could see where you increased and decreased just based on the flow of the blanket, I guess. This one I would actually have to count. So I set it aside and did not work on it until after the visiting family had left. So I do still need to cast on and do the other sleeve. I really do want to get this done. Ooh. Over the last couple of weeks, it has still been a little bit cold occasionally here in Idaho, but we're also expecting it to start heating up and heating up quickly. So the sweater, my building at work can sometimes be very cold, so maybe it's still something I can wear while I'm at work, but I'm not expecting to get a whole bunch of wear out of this until the winter unless I finish it soon. So I really do want to get working on that sleeve, and I will probably try to get that at least set up to go tomorrow so that before my next week of work starts, I have it ready to just keep chugging along. I almost forgot to mention the yarn I am using is Wander acrylic yarn in the color Midnight. And yeah, that's all I really have to say about that one. There just wasn't a lot of progress. It's a whole sleeve, but so the last work in progress that I have, I actually do have a pretty project bag here. This project bag is from Knitted Niceties. They sell these at a local yarn store here, Three Loves Yarn. It's close to my work, so it's kind of hard not to go there all the time, but it's nice to be able to go there after work. They have an Etsy store. I'm not sure if they sell the bags in their Etsy store, but it will be linked down below. So this project is one I started recently because I was looking for something that would be a little bit, kind of want to say mindless, like no pattern, just something that I could pick up and work on easily. The yarn itself is tangled in my needles. So this is from Muse 2320. It is in the color French Tapestry. I know that is like super blurry. This is I want to say Bumblebee slub base. Yeah, Bumblebee superwash slub, 90% merino wool, 10% nylon. So this was a limited edition color. She did some colorways that were inspired by various works of art. This one, French Tapestry. And I have not done very much. The plan was to make a cowl using just stockinette stitch in the round with the idea that this yarn has so much texture. This yarn has so much texture already that it didn't really need any patterns. And I just kind of grabbed it as car knitting when I finished my last pair of socks because it was already caked up and ready to go. No pattern, so I could do whatever I needed to do on the go. But I'm just not really enjoying it, and I'm not sure why. I don't know if it was because I wasn't enjoying working on it in the car, if it's because it's starting to warm up and I don't really want a cowl. I'm not sure. I think it's going to kind of be back burner knitting for a little while because I do really love the colors, and I think it would make a nice like neutral cowl that would still be interesting because of the texture of the yarn. There's really not, like, I only have 5 or 6 rows, so there's not much to see on the knitting yet. I do think this yarn should have a very simple pattern, but I only have the one cake now. It was one skein, and they are sold out of this color, so if I wanted to do anything bigger, I can't. It was just, I wanted to try the Bumblebee Slub base, and I liked the color. So this might just be something I work on every now and then until I decide if I'm liking it, or I may just kind of put it in timeout until I know if I like it or not. But I already have plans for another pair of socks for car knitting, so maybe when I'm not working on it in the car, I'll like it better. Yes, I can't quite put my finger on what it is about this project that I'm not excited about, but it does not make me want to keep working on it right now. So that is all I have for finished objects and works in progress. So now it's off to some of the fun stuff, which is acquisitions. So I have a few bits of yarn. One of the first things I have within my reach is actually a book. It does not say who this is by. Oh my goodness. Okay, so the Maria Ermolova, and it is a spring crocheted gnomes pattern book. She also has a version for Christmas holidays and Halloween, both of which I think I will definitely want, especially the Halloween. But I always mean to make more little gnomes because they're so cute. And then I end up not getting the patterns. They get backburnered for whatever reason. But I mean, come on, look at that little guy. So this was just kind of an impulse buy. I ordered it from Amazon, and they are super cute. I'm not sure that I would do all of the gnomes that are in this book in the colors suggested, but like, I feel like I could have a lot of fun with that little tree guy. Like, he doesn't have to have a bird in his head. Like, he could be a spooky tree. He could be so many different things. Yeah, I'm not sure that I would do all the pastels and things like that. But there's so many things in here where, like, you can make them just as they are. Or, like, I feel like this front one has great potential to be a bright colored, like, pride gnome. Do a nice bright rainbow. Or even just, like, a rainbow and then all white, like a cloud at the bottom. I don't know, I kind of want to make a rainbow with a storm cloud, like... They're cute as they are, but I feel like there's a lot of potential to play with color with these too. So maybe soon you'll see some crocheted gnomes. Kind of like playing with my inspiration lately where I want to work on everything and nothing all at once. So I'm not 100% sure what you're going to see in the next few times. The next acquisition that I have on top is one that is part of my wanting to work on everything and nothing at the same time. I have been really wanting to learn Tunisian crochet for a while, but it is one of those things that I just keep putting off and putting off and putting off. And I finally did teach myself a little bit. I just made a small square that I'm not showing you today because my small child took it to be a washcloth for her stuffed dog and went and gave him a bath, and I did not see that square again. But it was just a little like sample square to learn the technique of a basic Tunisian crochet stitch, and I really have a desire to make another blanket. I don't know why, it's getting cold, but clearly I'm in a blanket mood. I don't normally like to make blankets, and one of the things, I've talked about it before, that I don't like making with blankets is, since I still have this here, So you start and you go and you work 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 and you get to this corner, and then you have to like flip the blanket over so that the longer you're working on the blanket, the more you have to flip around. With Tunisian crochet, you don't have to flip it over. And it's just, it seems like it's a fun thing to learn, and it is one of those crafts and skills that you either hear people who are very passionate about, or it's people who are like, I've never even heard of that. And so there's a part of me that would really like to try it. So I just have a, is it a chaigu or a chowgu, bamboo 32-inch, 80 centimeter size P or 11.5 millimeter Tunisian crochet hook. It's not an interchangeable hook. I do have a fairly inexpensive interchangeable set coming in, but I didn't want to get too much at first until I learned whether or not I liked it. And then I ordered a Clover Tunisian crochet interchangeable set after I made my little square, and it's like, okay, I like this. I think I might want to do it a little bit more. And there's definitely a part of me that would like to invest in like the very expensive sets of those hooks. But I don't want, I want quality materials, but I don't want to invest in too much in a new hobby that I'm not sure if I'm going to do very much. So the Clover hooks are usually recommended as a good beginner set, so I'm hoping I will be happy with those. And I do have some yarn that I think would be very good for a blanket. I'm trying to finish up a couple of things, like I know I really want to push through that sleeve on my Elizabeth sweater, so kind of trying to at least push through that much before I start another really big thing. But again, I really thought after I finished my last class that like my brain would stop wanting to start so many projects. I'm not usually a lot of open projects person, but I guess right now I am. All right, let me take a brief pause and then we'll get into the yarn. So I know that I've talked a little bit about tracking my yarn in past episodes, where I'm trying to track how much comes in and how much comes out, because I want to be intentional about my storage and buy yarn that I will use, which I have been doing really bad about lately. I am expecting to be able to track a lot of things going out this month because I have one blanket finished, I will have another blanket finished, and hopefully a sweater finished all within the month of April, which will each track several balls of yarn out of stash. For me, I do not count it as out of stash until the project is completed, and I know I am not going to frog that project. Because, again, for me, it is about storage, not am I using it. Because if it's just am I using it, I could count it out of stash as soon as I cake it up and then never actually cast on. So, I am still buying yarn, but I'm trying to make sure that I am using it. I'm expecting to have quite a bit come in. I have 3 monthly subscriptions that I get, though one of them was just a 3-month subscription, so I'm expecting my last one from that to be arriving this next week, so you'll see it next time. Later in the month, I will receive my hand dyed from a local yarn dyer, and then another one from Muse 2320, and then of course I still just see yarn that I like here and there. So I do have a few in here that I just, they were pretty. The one on top arrived just today. It is from Craftily Dyed Yarn. It is a 75/25 classic sock base, and it is in the color Indian Corn. So I have been eyeballing some of her colors like this on Etsy for a little while, and then finally went ahead and ordered it. And it's just, I know the color is Indian Corn, but I've said it before, sunset is my favorite color, and this one makes me think of sunset. There's not a lot of blue in it, but you've got the sun down here, and it's fading up into the night sky, and this is going to be an amazing pair of socks. I am starting to think I need to be thinking outside of socks a little bit more, because socks take a little while to make, and I do acquire a lot of sock yarn, but I'm not really a hat wearer. I'm not much of like a gloves or anything wearer, though I did see on Do So Knits a little while ago where she took fingering weight yarn, held it double, and made a couple of other adjustments that she talked about to make fire pit mitts. So I do enjoy the pair of fire pit mitts that I made before. I may try doing that with some of my sock yarns. Maybe this one. So this is craftily dyed yarn in the color Indian Corn. The next one also arrived today. This one is, okay, sorry. So this is EYB Fair Isle. It is a superwash Australian wool blend. 75% superwash wool, 25% nylon. This is actually a number 4 medium, and it is in the color Wanderlust. So this is a self-striping that has the little speckles in it to give it a Fair Isle look without actually doing Fair Isle. And I used to have more yarn that did this. It's been a very long time since I've had any. This, as a slightly thicker yarn, may end up in stash for a little bit until the weather turns again. And then it will either become socks, of course, or some sort of fire pit mitts. I do kind of want to make mittens, because I do live in an area that gets cold, but I'm not sure if I would wear them or not. So this may sit in stash for a little bit while I decide, and then have it come out when the weather turns again. I saw it, I fell in love fast, and I didn't realize that it was a slightly thicker yarn when I ordered it. So I was just thinking it was one of those things that I would actually start working up right away. And then it got here and it was like, oh, I read the size of the yarn wrong. So I may still work it up right away. Who knows? The last bit of yarn that I acquired from Etsy is You Knit, I Dye in the color I Love Love. It's a sock set. 85% superwash merino, 15% nylon. So it's got a lot of pinks and speckles and a little purple mini skein with it. Obviously, I say it all the time, most likely going to be socks. So that is all of my Etsy yarn. I have 2 other yarns. I actually got quite a lot of these, but I'm not going to show you all of them because they all look the same. So I got some Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool. I have 4 skeins in the color Nature's Brown, and 4 skeins in the color Brown Heather. Which, for someone who says they're trying not to buy a lot of yarn, sounds like a lot of yarn. But these were both actually, they're very much intended for an upcoming project. They will be gift knitting. And so I'm not sure when I will start it, but I happened to see some of the Fisherman's Wool on sale at my local Joann's while getting yarn to finish that large blanket. And since I was planning on doing these later in the year, I was like, well, if I'm planning on getting it in these colors with this wool for a project I already know and it's here on sale now, no, I don't want to store it for that long, but yes, I do want the discount. So I went ahead and grabbed the 8. While I was in Joann's, I was only able to get 4 because I was able to get 3 of the, is it Nature's? Yeah, Nature's Brown and 1 of the Brown Heather. And then I had to order a 4th of the, order from online to get them up to 4 of each. I actually got very lucky where I got the same dye lot, so I have 4 of the same dye lot. Alright, I either grossly misjudged how much battery life I had left on my camera, or I talked longer than I thought, but my battery just died. So we're almost to the end. I've talked all about my finished objects, all about my works in progress, all about the new yarn and fiber related things that I have acquired. There's really not much left to talk other than to wrap it up a little bit with what I've been doing over the last couple of weeks. As I mentioned before, one of the reasons I did not film last weekend was because we had family in town. My in-laws came to visit, and so they arrived on a Thursday night. I had to go to work on Friday, so they were home hanging out with my husband. And at that time, this nasty cold had already been going around my work. Come Saturday morning, my in-laws are here. They're actually here to celebrate a few different things happening. And my voice starts to kind of crackle a little bit. By mid-afternoon, I have family visiting and I have no voice. So that was a little bit miserable. I didn't actually get my voice back until about midway through Monday. And they left on Wednesday morning. And I had to go back to work on Tuesday. I would have gone back to work on Monday, but I've mentioned before, I do work with small children, and you really can't work with small children with no voice. If I'd been, in some sort of a job where I never had to speak to anybody, I would have still gone in, wear a mask to avoid spreading germs, even if that's where I got it. But it's very hard to work with small children when you can't say anything to them. They don't always understand. So that was not entirely fun. We still were able to do many fun things. One of the things that we've been trying to do with our years with the military and traveling around, we kind of have started to try to make sure we know a little bit about the area we're in. So we took my in-laws and went for a nice walk along the Greenbelt in Boise. I believe it is on the Boise River. But you walk right up near the University of Boise, go through neighborhoods, right along the river. You get some pretty views of mostly trees and water. And of course there was a lot of other people out there with their dogs. It's a pretty big walking, running, biking kind of trail. And there was all sorts of pretty ducks in the water, so that was very nice. And then of course I had work and school, which was a little less fun. I'm getting close to the end of my semester. Each semester right now I take a 3-credit class and then a 1-credit class. So I'm coming up on my next final again already, but then I'll get a couple of weeks off before everything starts all over again. So I'm definitely looking forward to that little break. I've already finished with all of my lectures for this particular class. I just have one more. I guess I'm not quite done with my lectures because I have an in-person class to attend. And then it's all just studying for my final. But I think that's really about it. And I can kind of feel my voice kind of crackling. It's still not entirely back. Whatever this cold that was going around was just not pleasant. I was still somewhat lucky only losing my voice. But I think that is all for now. I have a few projects that I need to put away, yarn to put away, and of course some projects that I really want to make some more progress on this weekend, and now a video to edit. So that is all from me for now. I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend if they are watching this on the weekend. If you're not, have a wonderful week and enjoy your making.